The desert settles into its nighttime rhythm with a softness that feels almost deliberate, as though the landscape itself is preparing to guide you into calm. Warm air drifts gently across quiet Phoenix neighborhoods, slipping through open windows and brushing against wind chimes that ring in slow, irregular patterns. Far above, the sky stretches unbroken, a deep, velvety expanse that reveals more stars than most cities ever allow. Here, in the heart of Arizona, the night sky is not just a backdrop, it is a presence, a companion, something people grow up watching and quietly respecting. In these moments, the desert feels timeless, as though every evening connects to all those that came before, every stargazer joining an unspoken lineage reaching back centuries. As the city winds down, lights dim in living rooms, conversations soften, and the hum of the day fades into a gentle hush. Even the highways seem quieter after dark, the usual traffic replaced by sporadic, distant engines blending smoothly with the warm air. In the distance, the desert's wide open spaces create a feeling of spaciousness, the kind that allows your mind to breathe and drift. Coyotes occasionally call out from far-off ridges, but even their voices sound slower at night, stretched by the surrounding stillness. This is the Arizona many residents know well, a place where the sky feels larger than the land, where looking upward becomes as natural as inhaling. It is within this calm that the year 1997 reemerges, almost like an echo. March unfolds with mild evenings, cool breezes, and crystal-clear visibility across the valley. The conditions are perfect for stargazing, perfect for noticing anything unusual that might travel through the sky. People sit on porches, unwind after long days, or take slow nighttime walks under the familiar canopy of constellations that guide their routine glances upward. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels extraordinary. Not yet. And that is part of what makes what happened next so memorable. The way the mystery intruded upon a night so ordinary, so peaceful, so familiar. The Arizona desert has always been wrapped in a subtle aura of mystery. For thousands of years, indigenous tribes observed the sky closely, weaving celestial patterns into stories that explain creation, nature, and the cycles of life. Their legends often described beings or presences descending from the stars, not fearfully, but as natural elements of a world filled with wonder. Those cultural threads, quiet but enduring, still linger across the state. Later came the era of military expansion, aircraft development, and classified testing. With bases and training ranges scattered across Arizona, residents became accustomed to unusual lights, jets, flares, and experimental craft that sometimes made appearances along the horizon. Yet this familiarity didn't breed confusion. Instead, it sharpened awareness. People here know the sky, recognize its patterns, and notice when something defies them. On most nights, nothing breaks the tranquility. But on March 13, 1997, the calm became a canvas for something extraordinary. The sense of serenity only deepened the impact of what so many would soon witness. Before any reports were made, before phone lines buzzed and local news scrambled, the desert simply waited, vast, quiet, and open. The sky held its steady glow of starlight, unaware or perhaps perfectly aware of the attention it was about to command. And the thousands of people settling into their routines were unknowingly moments away from becoming part of a shared experience that would ripple far beyond Arizona, far beyond that night. As you ease deeper into this story, imagine yourself there, stepping outside into the warm March air, feeling the stillness around you, watching the sky the way so many did. Nothing urgent, nothing alarming, just the peaceful act of looking up. The story begins gently, not with noise or spectacle, but with the quiet of an ordinary evening. A night that was supposed to be like any other, until the lights appeared, drifting silently and deliberately across the desert sky, changing the way countless people would remember that moment forever. Before the lights appeared in 1997, Arizona already carried a long and complicated relationship with its sky, one shaped by history, culture, and generations of people who relied on the desert's clarity to understand their place in the world. Long before cities like Phoenix grew into sprawling communities, the region was home to tribes who studied celestial movements, not out of curiosity alone, but as an essential part of life. The Hopi, Navajo, and other indigenous peoples observed the stars as teachers, guides, and markers of cycles that influenced agriculture, ceremony, and identity. To them, the sky was not distant. It was intertwined with everyday existence, full of meaning and silent communication. Their stories spoke of star beings and lights that moved across the heavens with purpose, shaping a cultural foundation that made unusual aerial events feel less like intrusions and more like extensions of a long, mysterious conversation with the universe. As centuries passed and settlers moved into the region, the desert retained its reputation as a place where the sky felt unusually close. The air here is dry, the clouds sparse, and the horizons wide, offering an unobstructed view that stretches farther than the eye can comfortably follow. By the time Arizona entered the modern era, its natural conditions made it an ideal environment for astronomy, military training, and aerospace research. The state became home to observatories perched on high plateaus, universities conducting atmospheric studies, and eventually several key military installations. Luke Air Force Base and Davis-Monthan Air Force Base became central to flight training and weapons testing, bringing aircraft of all types into Arizona's airspace. Residents grew accustomed to distant rumbling engines, flare drops, formation flights, and the distinctive movements of planes practicing maneuvers against the vast, open backdrop of the desert. Because of this familiarity, people developed a keen sense for what was normal and what was not. Living under such a clear sky for so long creates a natural observational discipline. When you see jets frequently, you recognize their silhouettes even at a distance. You learn the difference between a slow-moving helicopter and a high-altitude aircraft. You know the way flares behave as they fall, flickering softly against the darkness, and you understand the sound signatures of military exercises. This everyday exposure created a community that was not easily startled or misled by aerial lights. In a way, it meant Arizona residents were uniquely prepared to notice when something defied their expectations. They knew the rhythms of the sky, and they trusted those rhythms enough to detect when something moved against them. The cultural landscape of Phoenix and its surrounding towns added another layer to this sky awareness. The 1990s were a period of rapid growth, with suburbs spreading outward, new families moving in, and the city becoming one of the fastest-growing regions in the country. Yet despite its expansion, Phoenix maintained a sense of openness. Wide roads, spacious neighborhoods, and large stretches of undeveloped desert still touching the urban edges. Even as the population increased, it remained common for people to spend warm evenings outdoors, sitting on porches, taking late walks, or simply enjoying the cool breeze after a hot day. The sky was always right there, unobstructed and inviting. Children learned constellations casually, not through formal lessons, but because they were visible enough to notice. Couples relaxed under them. Retirees sat outside after sunset, letting the night air settle around them. It was a sky people lived with, not merely looked at. All of this created a fertile environment for a mass sighting, though no one knew it at the time. The blend of indigenous tradition, military presence, scientific curiosity, and everyday sky awareness prepared the community in an almost poetic way. When something unusual appeared, it would not go unnoticed. It would be recognized simultaneously by people who approached the sky from completely different perspectives. Those who studied it scientifically, those who worked alongside aircraft, those who treated it spiritually, and those who simply appreciated its beauty. As March 1997 approached, Arizona was in one of its clearest seasonal windows. The air was calm, the temperatures pleasant, and visibility nearly perfect. People across the state were enjoying the kind of evenings that make the desert feel gentle and expansive. Against this backdrop, the population was not restless or distracted. They were grounded, observant, and relaxed. And in that quiet space, shaped by culture, history, and environment, the stage was set for one of the most widely witnessed and deeply discussed sky events in modern American history. The people of Arizona did not know what they were about to see, but they were uniquely prepared to notice it, interpret it, and remember it. The evening of March 13, 1997, began like any other. Quiet, warm, and unhurried. But the events that unfolded across hundreds of miles would soon become a timeline studied, debated, and revisited for decades. What makes the Phoenix Lights so remarkable is not just what was seen, but the way the phenomenon seemed to travel, almost purposefully, across the American Southwest. Hours before Phoenix residents looked up in confusion or awe, the first reports emerged from the skies over Nevada. In the quiet outskirts near Henderson, witnesses described a formation of lights moving with unusual smoothness, gliding low enough that some claimed they could make out a structure connecting them. At this early stage, there was no panic, just curiosity. But the consistency of descriptions would later give these first sightings greater weight. As the formation continued its southbound path, the lights were reported over Boulder City, where more people stepped outside to watch them drift silently overhead. A local police officer later recounted seeing a V-shaped object with a clear outline against the night sky, something larger than any commercial aircraft he had encountered. In other towns surrounding Las Vegas, residents described the lights as moving too slowly to be jets, too steady to be helicopters, and too synchronized to be random objects. These early sightings form the beginning of a smooth, continuous arc, one that suggests the lights were not a stationary phenomenon, but something traveling with purpose and direction. As the formation approached the Arizona border, calls began to come into local sheriff's departments from communities scattered across the northern part of the state. In Paulden, the witness, who is often cited as the first Arizona observer, described a series of reddish lights arranged in a distinct triangular shape. He watched them move soundlessly across the sky, estimating the object to be enormous, far larger than anything he had seen in the region, an area familiar with both commercial and military aviation. From Paulden, the lights seemed to continue along a consistent trajectory, heading southeast toward Prescott Valley. In Prescott and Prescott Valley, multiple families watched the formation pass overhead. Some described it not merely as a cluster of lights, but as a single craft so large it briefly blocked out the stars behind it. The silence became a repeating theme. Witnesses were struck by the complete absence of noise, even though the size of the object suggested that engines, rotors, or at least some mechanical hum should have been audible. A retired Air Force pilot, one of the most cited witnesses, reported seeing something unlike any aircraft he had encountered during his service. His description of the object's scale, possibly a mile wide, added an element of credibility that would later make dismissal difficult. By the time the lights reached the outskirts of Phoenix, the number of observers multiplied rapidly. March evenings were comfortable, and many people were outdoors, leaving them perfectly positioned to notice something unusual. Calls began to flood local radio stations and police lines, not out of fear, but out of confusion and a sense of shared astonishment. People described a massive V-shaped arrangement moving slowly and steadily across the sky, low enough to give observers a clear view, yet high enough to seem almost surreal. Some estimated the formation was traveling at the speed of a slow helicopter. Others described it as drifting like a glider caught in a gentle current. What is striking about the Phoenix portion of the timeline is how synchronized the reports were. Entire neighborhoods saw the lights at nearly the same moment. Drivers pulled over onto roadsides. Families came out onto front lawns. In many cases, multiple households described identical shapes, movements, and sizes without any opportunity for influence or communication between them. Street-level observations matched those from people perched on balconies or walking dogs. For a brief window of time, the Phoenix sky became a shared experience that connected strangers through a single moment of collective wonder. As the formation continued south, the lights were later observed passing over the Gila River Indian community and then further toward Tucson, though these sightings were fewer in number. Eventually, the formation vanished into the night, leaving behind no physical trace, only memories, phone calls, camcorder footage of separate lights recorded later that night, and a growing sense that something extraordinary had moved quietly through the desert sky. The timeline of March 13th would go on to serve as the backbone of countless investigations, each trying to understand how so many people across such a large distance could describe something so similar, so calmly, and with such certainty. The true heart of the Phoenix Lights event lies in the accounts of those who saw it, the quiet testimonies that captured the wonder, confusion, and awe of that night. Families sitting on porches, friends enjoying a late-night walk, or retirees gazing at the desert sky suddenly found themselves witnesses to something that defied their expectations. Many described the first sight as a row of lights hovering in the sky, moving in deliberate formation, almost as if the stars themselves had taken shape and descended to join the earth. The descriptions, though coming from people with widely different backgrounds, shared remarkable consistency: enormous size, slow and silent movement, and a triangular or V-shaped arrangement. Observers often tried to reconcile what they saw with what they knew, realizing quickly that this was unlike any airplane, helicopter, or meteor they had ever encountered. One of the most frequently cited testimonies comes from a retired Air Force pilot who, upon seeing the formation, immediately recognized that something extraordinary was unfolding. He reported an object so large it seemed to span miles, moving with a grace that defied conventional aviation. Unlike civilians who relied on casual observation, his background allowed him to estimate size, distance, and speed with a trained eye. His calm description, detached, precise, and measured, added a layer of credibility that would make skepticism more complicated. He, like so many others, noted the profound silence of the craft. An object of such magnitude should have produced an audible roar, a vibration, or at least a hum, yet there was none. The quietness of it contributed to the eerie sense that the sky itself had become a stage for something otherworldly. Beyond trained observers, countless everyday witnesses provide equally compelling perspectives. Families sitting together on back patios noticed the lights, initially mistaking them for flares or aircraft. But the slow, steady drift, the perfect formation, and the lack of sound quickly erased that possibility. Parents watched their children point toward the sky, children who often identify planes and stars instinctively, and all shared the same wonder and disbelief. Some described the lights as so bright and close that it felt as though they could reach out and touch them. Others noted subtle shifts in color or intensity, movements too deliberate to be random, yet too smooth to belong to known technology. Psychologists and UFO researchers alike have noted that the consistency of these testimonies is significant. In most cases of large-scale sightings, discrepancies often arise due to stress, fear, or poor visibility. But the Phoenix Lights occurred under conditions ideal for observation: clear skies, calm winds, and minimal distractions. Witnesses were relaxed, unhurried, and able to watch carefully. This factor, stress-free observation, may have contributed to the high degree of agreement across hundreds of independent reports. The phenomenon was seen not just once or twice, but repeatedly across multiple counties, creating a rare opportunity to compare eyewitness accounts in near real time. Even those who initially tried to rationalize the lights as aircraft, balloons, or flares soon found themselves struggling to fit their observations into conventional explanations. Some neighbors called authorities, only to be met with confusion or dismissal. Others recorded brief video footage, capturing lights that seemed to hover or move in impossible ways. And yet, despite the proliferation of cameras and video in the 1990s, much of the phenomenon remained elusive on film, leaving human memory as the primary record. The shared experience, neighbors seeing the same lights, families recounting the same sequences of movement, added a communal weight to the event, turning private curiosity into collective awareness. The profound impact on witnesses was not only visual, but emotional. Many described feelings of awe, calm, and even reverence, as if observing something far larger than themselves, yet not threatening. Some experienced an almost spiritual connection to the night sky, recalling how silence and scale can amplify perception and memory. Others were left with lingering questions not of fear, but of wonder, a persistent curiosity that carried into conversations, interviews, and later research. These personal accounts form the core of the Phoenix Light story. Ordinary people, calmly observing an extraordinary occurrence, each adding their voice to a chorus that resonates decades later. As the lights moved steadily across the Arizona sky, responses from government, military, and media sources began to unfold in ways that would add layers of confusion, skepticism, and fascination to the event. In the immediate hours following March 13th, calls poured into local law enforcement agencies and radio stations, with residents describing what they had seen. Sheriff departments often received dozens of calls in quick succession, not from frightened citizens, but from calm, curious observers who simply wanted to report the inexplicable. Early on, there was no unified explanation, no immediate official statement, and this silence contributed to the sense of uncertainty, leaving room for speculation while the public tried to piece together what had just occurred above them. At the state level, Arizona's governor at the time, Fife Symington, initially dismissed the event with humor, calling the sightings hype and likening them to a hoax. However, within weeks, Symington would publicly admit that he, too, had witnessed the lights, describing them as otherworldly and far beyond anything he had seen in the skies over Phoenix. This reversal added credibility to the reports and signaled to the public that what they had observed could not be easily explained or ignored. It also reflected the tension between maintaining public calm and acknowledging the extraordinary nature of the phenomenon. In between these political responses, state and local authorities quietly collected witness reports, attempting to correlate observations and document the scale of what had occurred, though much of this data would later remain unofficial or fragmented. The military's involvement further complicated the narrative. Initially, no branches of the U.S. Air Force or Department of Defense acknowledged activity that could account for the lights. Later, the explanation offered was that the lights were flares dropped by A-10 Warthog aircraft conducting nighttime training exercises at the Berry Goldwater Range southwest of Phoenix. Military officials noted that such flares can appear unusually bright from a distance and can linger as they descend slowly through the air. While technically accurate in some respects, this explanation was met with widespread skepticism. Witnesses who had observed the phenomenon at close range described the lights as stationary or moving in formation across vast distances, behaviors inconsistent with a rapid descent and drift typical of flares. The silence and partial explanations from official sources only deepened the mystery for many observers, reinforcing the notion that something unusual had indeed occurred. Media coverage played a decisive role in shaping public perception. Local news stations began reporting on the sightings almost immediately, often using live interviews with residents who had witnessed the lights. These broadcasts captured the awe, curiosity, and uncertainty of the moment, presenting first-hand accounts without definitive explanation. National media, on the other hand, frequently framed the event with skepticism, presenting the military's flare explanation alongside footage that many found inconclusive. The contrast between local eyewitness conviction and broader media caution created a dynamic in which the Phoenix Lights became both a community phenomenon and a national curiosity, simultaneously grounded in personal testimony and shrouded in public doubt. Beyond immediate responses, the event sparked broader discussions about credibility and collective experience. Researchers noted that the alignment between civilian reports and the few radar traces available created attention. Official reports suggested nothing extraordinary had occurred, yet the consistency of eyewitness descriptions, including those from trained observers, indicated otherwise. This divergence fueled debates in newspapers, talk shows, and academic circles, raising questions about what constitutes evidence and how mass sightings are assessed. It also illuminated the human tendency to seek explanations even when the facts remain ambiguous, and the balance between skepticism and openness to the unknown. Through this mixture of silence, partial acknowledgement, skepticism, and media amplification, the Phoenix Lights solidified their place in the public imagination. Observers who had watched the silent, massive formation that night saw a reflection of the limits of institutional understanding. They saw a discrepancy between what they knew with certainty and what authorities were willing or able to confirm. In this space between observation and official explanation, curiosity deepened, speculation grew, and the event became a fertile ground for both scientific and paranormal inquiry. The interaction between government responses, military statements, and media portrayal ensured that the Phoenix Lights were not just a fleeting desert phenomenon, but a story whose resonance would expand far beyond the night it occurred, lingering in collective memory and research for decades to come. While government explanations and media coverage offered one perspective, careful analysis of conventional theories provides another lens through which to understand the Phoenix Lights. One of the most widely cited explanations involves flares dropped by A-10 Warthog aircraft from the Berry Goldwater Range, southwest of Phoenix. These military exercises were conducted regularly, and flares, designed to illuminate target areas during training, can appear unusually bright from a distance, hovering or drifting slowly as they descend. From miles away, their glow can create the illusion of large, stationary lights, and when seen in groups, they may form patterns that resemble intentional arrangements. This explanation, technically accurate, offers a plausible human-made source for at least some of the observed lights, particularly those reported in the southern portions of the state. Yet when observers describe the scale and behavior of the lights, the flare theory encounters challenges. Many witnesses estimated that the lights spanned a massive area, moving silently in a deliberate, triangular formation. Flares, subject to wind currents, typically drift with minor randomness and fade quickly. They rarely maintain consistent relative positioning over such vast distances. The sheer size reported by numerous observers, especially near Prescott and Phoenix, suggests something larger than a handful of flares could account for. The discrepancies between the predictable behavior of flares and the eyewitness descriptions highlight why even conventional explanations leave some elements of the event unresolved. Aircraft misidentification offers another conventional explanation. Arizona's clear skies, coupled with nearby military bases and commercial flight paths, create frequent opportunities for observers to see unusual aerial activity. Pilots flying in formation or unfamiliar planes seen from below can appear to move in ways that challenge ordinary perception, especially when seen at night. The brain often interprets relative motion and distance incorrectly without reference points, creating illusions of size, speed, or structure. For the Phoenix Lights, however, many witnesses were experienced in observing the sky. Some were pilots, others had long histories of watching aircraft, and many lived in areas where unusual aerial activity was familiar. Their accounts were often precise and consistent, making misidentification less likely, but still worth considering as part of a broader spectrum of explanations. Atmospheric and astronomical phenomena also warrant consideration. Bright stars, planets, or celestial events can be misperceived under certain conditions, and mirages or reflections can distort familiar points of light. During the night of March 13th, however, visibility was exceptionally clear, the sky devoid of clouds or significant atmospheric distortion, and no known astronomical events occurred that could convincingly produce the mass formation described by witnesses. The environmental conditions that night actually made conventional misperceptions less likely, reinforcing the idea that the lights were unusual, whether man-made or otherwise. Perceptual psychology provides insight into why observers interpreted the lights as they did. When confronted with unknown stimuli in a calm, focused environment, the human brain seeks to impose structure and meaning. Triangular formations, geometric symmetry, and uniform motion are patterns that the mind readily recognizes. In the case of the Phoenix Lights, witnesses consistently reported similar shapes, distances, and movements across hundreds of miles. This suggests that while perceptual factors may have enhanced certain impressions, they alone cannot fully account for the collective agreement among independent observers. Taken together, these conventional explanations, flares, aircraft, atmospheric phenomena, and perceptual interpretation, provide a grounded framework for understanding some aspects of the event. They illustrate how trained analysis can reconcile parts of the sighting with known principles and technology. Yet they also underscore the limitations of conventional reasoning when faced with large-scale, multi-observer events. Some details, such as the silent movement, enormous apparent scale, and near-perfect formation, resist easy categorization. The combination of plausible conventional sources and the persistent anomalies observed that night creates a tension that would later invite alternative and more speculative theories, encouraging researchers and observers alike to explore the edges between explanation, perception, and mystery. Beyond conventional explanations, the Phoenix Lights invite consideration of possibilities that stretch into the extraordinary. Eyewitness accounts, particularly from experienced pilots and careful observers, describe a phenomenon that seems difficult to reconcile with flares, aircraft, or atmospheric illusions alone. The triangular formation, immense scale, silent movement, and uniformity reported by hundreds of witnesses suggest the presence of something unusual, something that challenges conventional understanding. Researchers in ufology have long argued that these features, especially when observed simultaneously across such a wide geographical area, warrant exploration of alternative theories, including the possibility of advanced or experimental craft, and even extraterrestrial origin. One line of thought considers the possibility of a massive, single craft, perhaps employing technology unknown to the public. Witnesses describe lights moving in perfect formation, often appearing to remain equidistant despite traversing dozens of miles. The size estimated by some observers, potentially spanning miles, far exceeds conventional aircraft. Ufologists have proposed that such a craft could utilize propulsion methods beyond current aerospace capabilities, allowing it to move silently and hover with apparent ease. While these theories remain speculative, the consistent detail and credibility of the eyewitnesses lend weight to their consideration, especially when conventional explanations seem incomplete. Experimental military platforms represent another plausible, though still extraordinary, explanation. The United States has historically tested secret aircraft, including stealth technology and unconventional propulsion systems, under conditions designed to minimize public detection. Some theorists suggest that the Phoenix Lights could have been an undisclosed military craft or exercise, using formation lights for coordination or observation. While this hypothesis does not necessarily imply extraterrestrial origin, it does raise the possibility that the public witnessed technology far beyond ordinary awareness. The difficulty lies in the scale and behavior described. No known craft, even experimental, was confirmed to move silently in such a coordinated formation over a distance as observed that night. Some accounts extend into more speculative realms, considering interdimensional phenomena or plasma-based manifestations. Observers have occasionally described subtle variations in color or intensity, a movement quality that feels alive, or an absence of conventional physical boundaries. Such descriptions, while anecdotal, have prompted discussions about whether certain forms of light or energy could behave in ways unfamiliar to conventional science. Scholars in parapsychology and ufology often frame these ideas cautiously, emphasizing that they are not proven, but noting that they cannot be entirely dismissed in the context of mass, consistent, and credible observations. The human response to the Phoenix Lights also illuminates why alternative theories resonate. Mass sightings of unexplained aerial phenomena engage a psychological and cultural curiosity, a desire to comprehend events that challenge everyday experience. People instinctively seek explanations, and when conventional answers seem insufficient, speculation naturally arises. Shared observation, repeated reports, and the presence of trained witnesses create a powerful narrative that feels both credible and mysterious. This blend of factual consistency and perceptual wonder encourages exploration of extraordinary possibilities while maintaining respect for reason and evidence. Ultimately, the Phoenix Lights exist in a space between known and unknown. Conventional explanations account for parts of the phenomenon, yet the scale, behavior, and silence challenge those frameworks. Alternative theories, from advanced human craft to extraterrestrial visitation, provide lenses through which the event can be re-examined without dismissing the testimony of hundreds of people who observed it firsthand. For listeners, this invites not fear but curiosity, a calm contemplation of the possibilities that lie just beyond the familiar, encouraging a sense of wonder while remaining grounded in careful observation. The night of March 13th becomes not just a story of lights in the sky, but a meditation on the unknown, a gentle reflection on the vastness of both the desert and the universe above it. The Phoenix Lights did not simply fade into memory after March 13, 1997. Instead, they took on a life of their own, quietly reshaping the cultural landscape of Arizona, the broader United States, and even the global conversation about unidentified aerial phenomena. For those who witnessed the event firsthand, it was a night of profound curiosity, a memory etched into their minds with the clarity of starlight against the desert sky. Yet the impact went far beyond personal recollection, extending into the realms of media, politics, public discourse, and popular culture, ensuring that the Phoenix Lights would remain a reference point for anyone exploring mysteries of the sky for decades to come. Immediately following the event, the combination of official explanations, eyewitness accounts, and media coverage created a complex cultural dialogue. Local newspapers and television stations in Arizona reported the story with a mixture of intrigue and caution, often juxtaposing accounts from families and amateur observers with statements from government and military sources. This duality created a narrative tension. On one hand, the report suggested a perfectly explainable phenomenon. On the other, the sheer consistency and scale of witness descriptions suggested something that defied conventional understanding. Within communities across the state, conversations about the lights persisted for weeks and months. Families would recount what they saw over dinner tables, friends would share observations in casual meetings, and the sense of a shared, almost communal experience began to solidify. The phenomenon did more than just spark conversation. It catalyzed research and documentation efforts, both professional and amateur. Ufologists, researchers, and journalists traveled to Phoenix and surrounding towns, conducting interviews, filming additional footage, and collecting testimonies. Each account added new detail, from subtle variations in movement to observations about light intensity and formation. These studies often emphasize the extraordinary aspect of multiple independent witnesses reporting consistent observations, highlighting the event as one of the largest mass sightings in U.S. history. Researchers such as Stanton Friedman and other prominent figures in ufology used the Phoenix Lights as a case study in credibility, consistency, and the limits of conventional explanations. Academic interest, though more cautious, occasionally incorporated the event into studies of mass perception, eyewitness reliability, and socio-cultural responses to anomalous phenomena. The role of government officials, particularly Governor Fife Symington, amplified the cultural resonance. Symington's initial dismissal of the event, followed by his later admission that he had seen the lights himself, provided a rare and striking validation of witness reports. A sitting governor publicly acknowledging a personal encounter with unexplained lights added gravitas and legitimacy, making it difficult for skeptics to dismiss the event entirely. This unusual dynamic between political authority and popular observation created a template for how the Phoenix Lights would be remembered, not as a fleeting curiosity, but as a public phenomenon worthy of serious consideration. Cultural impact extended into the realm of media and entertainment as well. Documentaries, television specials, and print publications explored the Phoenix Lights, blending interviews with reenactments and archival footage. Shows on national networks introduced the story to audiences who had not experienced the event firsthand, while local productions provided a more intimate, community-centered perspective. The narrative often emphasized the extraordinary calm and clarity of the night, the human reactions to the unexpected, and the persistent silence of the lights as they traversed the sky. The story structure naturally lent itself to narrative exploration. It was a mystery that could be unpacked gradually, with tension built not through fear or horror, but through quiet observation and cumulative evidence. This storytelling style resonated particularly well with viewers interested in reflective, contemplative mysteries rather than sensationalist accounts. Public engagement also took physical form through gatherings, skywatching events, and anniversaries. Communities across Arizona began commemorating the date of March 13th, drawing together residents, amateur astronomers, and UFO enthusiasts. These gatherings often combined careful observation with social connection, allowing participants to relive the event collectively while reflecting on the night's mysteries. Over time, The Phoenix Lights became a point of cultural identity for some Arizonans, a shared reference that connected diverse groups through a common experience of the sky. Annual events created ritualistic elements, story sharing, presentations of witness accounts, and calm collective stargazing helped maintain the memory of the night as a lived, ongoing cultural moment rather than a static historical fact. Books and long-form publications played a significant role in preserving and expanding the story. Authors meticulously compiled interviews, analyzed government and military reports, and compared the Phoenix Lights to other sightings worldwide. The narrative grew richer over time, layering scientific analysis with personal testimony, historical context, and cultural reflection. This approach allowed the story to remain credible, grounded in research and observation, while maintaining the sense of mystery that had captivated witnesses. The Phoenix Lights thus entered a kind of cultural canon, referenced in discussions of UFO history, anomalous phenomena, and even philosophical considerations of human perception and curiosity. The story also intersected with evolving scientific discourse and media attention regarding unidentified aerial phenomena. As the Pentagon began releasing information about UAPs in the 2010s and 2020s, interest in historic cases like the Phoenix Lights resurfaced. Analysts and journalists compared contemporary radar data, government disclosures, and eyewitness reports with the 1997 sightings, often concluding that certain aspects remained unresolved. This renewed attention linked the Phoenix Lights to broader debates about transparency, public trust, and the boundaries of technological capability, positioning the event as not only a cultural phenomenon, but also an enduring point of inquiry in the national conversation about aerial mysteries. Perhaps one of the most subtle yet profound impacts of the Phoenix Lights lies in its influence on collective imagination. Unlike many UFO events framed by panic or fear, this sighting encouraged calm curiosity. Witnesses often described feelings of awe and wonder, a serene attention to something far larger than themselves, hovering silently in the night sky. This atmosphere, tranquil, observational, and deeply reflective, distinguishes the Phoenix Lights from more sensational accounts, giving it a timeless quality. It encouraged people to contemplate the unknown with equanimity, fostering a sense of connection to the sky and the universe above, and embedding the night into cultural consciousness as a symbol of shared curiosity and quiet mystery. In sum, the Phoenix Lights transformed from a single night of unexplained aerial observation into a multidimensional cultural touchstone. It affected individuals, communities, researchers, government officials, and media alike, creating an enduring narrative that combined personal testimony, investigative inquiry, and collective reflection. The event shaped how Arizona residents perceived their skies, influenced public discourse on UFOs and UAPs, and offered a model for blending observation with calm, contemplative storytelling. Through gatherings, publications, and renewed investigations, the Phoenix Lights continued to echo across decades, a quiet but persistent reminder that even in the familiar vastness of the desert, moments of extraordinary wonder can occur, leaving traces in both memory and culture that last far longer than the lights themselves. The Phoenix Lights have remained a subject of fascination not just because of the scale and clarity of the sighting in 1997, but because they continue to challenge investigators, researchers, and the public decades later. Modern investigations have benefited from advances in technology, broader access to historical data, and the cultural shift that has made the study of unexplained aerial phenomena more legitimate in the eyes of government and the scientific community. While eyewitness accounts provide the foundation for understanding the event, contemporary analyses allow us to explore the phenomenon with a level of precision that was not possible at the time. These modern efforts are not focused on sensationalism, but on methodical investigation, cross-referencing reports, reconstructing trajectories, and using technological tools to analyze environmental and observational variables. One of the major advancements in understanding the Phoenix Lights comes from improvements in radar modeling and atmospheric simulation. At the time of the sighting, radar coverage was limited, and official records did not fully capture the movement of the objects or formations that people observed. Modern analysts can now model how the lights would have appeared under the atmospheric conditions of March 13, 1997, factoring in temperature gradients, air density, wind speed, and humidity. These simulations can clarify the visibility of certain types of light sources over distance and help determine whether perceived size and movement might have been affected by optical illusions caused by the desert's unique atmospheric characteristics. For example, heat layers and mirages can subtly distort the apparent distance or shape of objects, which could explain variations in eyewitness estimations of size and trajectory. Yet even after these sophisticated reconstructions, some aspects of the sightings remain difficult to reconcile with known atmospheric phenomena, particularly the uniform movement and silence reported across such a wide area. In addition to environmental modeling, modern researchers have revisited the original video footage and photographs captured by residents that night. Unlike casual or low-resolution recordings typical of the 1990s, today's software allows analysts to stabilize shaky frames, adjust for light conditions, and enhance image quality without introducing artifacts. This process has led to clearer comparisons between different recordings from separate locations, revealing that the same pattern of lights was seen across multiple counties at nearly the same time. The uniformity and scale observed in these recordings reinforce the testimony of witnesses and provide a more concrete visual record that complements anecdotal evidence. Analysts note that even when factoring in camera distortions and human perceptual limitations, the recorded movements remain inconsistent with typical flares, balloons, or conventional aircraft. The release of previously classified information regarding UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, by the Pentagon and other government agencies in the 2010s and 2020s has also influenced modern understanding of the Phoenix Lights. While these disclosures do not directly confirm extraterrestrial involvement, they establish that even contemporary military technology and surveillance efforts sometimes encounter aerial objects whose origin or behavior is unexplained. This lends indirect credibility to historical events like the Phoenix Lights, suggesting that large-scale sightings with multiple credible witnesses deserve careful attention rather than immediate dismissal. Researchers now approach the Phoenix Lights with a framework informed by this evolving context. They examine the evidence systematically, consider multiple conventional explanations, and remain open to anomalous possibilities while documenting every detail meticulously. Another significant area of modern investigation is the analysis of witness memory and reporting patterns over time. Cognitive scientists and ufologists collaborate to assess how recall changes, what details remain consistent, and how social reinforcement might influence collective memory. Unlike spontaneous or isolated sightings, the Phoenix Lights involved thousands of observers, many of whom shared experiences in real time. Modern studies suggest that while memory can be influenced by subsequent retellings, core details, such as the shape of the formation, silence, and slow movement, remain remarkably consistent across decades. This consistency is rare in mass sighting events, giving the Phoenix Lights a status that warrants careful, serious consideration in both academic and investigative circles. Contemporary approaches also include cross-referencing similar events worldwide. Investigators have noted that large triangular or V-shaped formations with silent movement have been reported in Europe, South America, and other parts of the United States. While these sightings are separated by time and location, the similarities in structure, scale, and behavior create a pattern that suggests the Phoenix Lights were not an isolated anomaly. Researchers examine these correlations to assess whether atmospheric conditions, human perception, or technological possibilities could account for such events on a global scale, or whether they point to a consistent unexplained phenomenon that transcends individual geography. Digital mapping and GIS, Geographic Information System, technology have added another layer to modern investigations. Analysts can now accurately reconstruct flight paths, witness locations, and sighting timelines using geospatial data. By plotting observations from multiple sources, researchers can estimate the trajectory, speed, and altitude of the lights with greater precision than was possible in 1997. These reconstructions often confirm the widespread reach of the sightings, showing that the lights appeared simultaneously across hundreds of miles, reinforcing the improbability that they were isolated flares or small aircraft. GIS mapping also allows for a more nuanced understanding of which areas had optimal viewing conditions, helping to separate anomalies caused by geography or local light pollution from genuinely unexplained observations. Collaboration between professional investigators, amateur researchers, and citizen scientists has grown in the modern era. Online forums, databases, and archival projects enable the aggregation of reports, photos, and videos in ways that were unimaginable 2 decades ago. Researchers can now track patterns, compare witness accounts, and perform statistical analyses on the data, searching for correlations and inconsistencies that might clarify the event. These collaborative efforts create a body of evidence that combines anecdotal testimony with methodical analysis, bridging the gap between folklore and investigative rigor. One of the most intriguing aspects of modern research is the re-evaluation of the light's behavior in terms of physics and engineering. Scientists and aerospace experts have modeled how large, triangular formations could theoretically be achieved with current technology. Most conventional aircraft, even in formation, cannot match the observed silence, stability, or scale described by witnesses. Experimental platforms may account for part of the phenomenon, but the descriptions of near mythical size, perfect symmetry, and multi-hour visibility push the limits of conventional design. Some engineers speculate that the behavior could imply unknown propulsion techniques or energy sources, but these remain speculative without direct evidence. The discussion, however, underscores the importance of using rigorous technical reasoning alongside observational reports to evaluate the event. Finally, modern investigations emphasize the importance of placing the Phoenix Lights within a historical continuum. Researchers compare it to earlier and later mass sightings, study cultural impact, and track how the event influenced both public perception and policy on unidentified aerial phenomena. By doing so, they highlight not only the extraordinary nature of the 1997 sighting, but also the way such events interact with human culture, psychology, and institutional response. In this way, the Phoenix Lights are not just a historical curiosity. They are a case study in mass observation, collective experience, and the enduring mystery of phenomena that resist easy explanation. Through these multiple modern investigative avenues, radar and atmospheric analysis, video enhancement, government disclosure context, witness memory studies, global pattern comparison, GIS mapping, collaborative research, engineering modeling, and historical contextualization, the Phoenix Lights continue to captivate both researchers and the public. Decades later, they remain a powerful reminder that the skies can hold events that challenge our understanding, provoke curiosity, and inspire continued exploration. Even with the most sophisticated tools available today, parts of that March night resist conventional explanation, leaving space for wonder, inquiry, and the gentle acknowledgement that some mysteries may persist, quietly moving across the desert sky while observers, past and present, continue to look up in awe. The night of March 13, 1997, unfolds in memory not only as a series of events, but as a quiet meditation on the extraordinary within the ordinary. As darkness settled over Arizona, the desert seemed to hold its breath, the air carrying a gentle warmth, the kind that wraps around the body and softens the mind. The hills and wide plains were cloaked in stillness, the city lights of Phoenix flickering in a distant rhythm, like the slow pulse of some living organism beneath the vast sky. From countless porches, backyards, and open roads, people looked up, unknowingly awaiting a spectacle that would transcend conventional explanation. There was no rush, no sense of alarm, only the calm attentiveness of those accustomed to the rhythms of night, the subtle ways that stars, wind, and silence communicate to anyone patient enough to notice. And then the lights appeared. At first, they were unassuming, distant, slow-moving points of illumination, appearing almost like familiar aircraft lights or distant stars that had shifted closer. But as minutes passed, the observers realized these were no ordinary objects. The lights were arranged with a precision that defied casual explanation, moving in perfect formation, maintaining relative positions, as if guided by an invisible hand. Families describe the silent gliding of the V-shaped formation, its size so vast that it seemed to eclipse the stars themselves. Pilots, trained observers, and civilians alike noted the absence of engine noise, the impossibility of the scale, and the consistent, deliberate motion. There was a profound quietness to the phenomenon, a silence so complete that it heightened awareness, allowing the mind to absorb every subtle movement, every nuance of light. In that silence, the desert, the city, and the sky seemed to merge, creating a shared space where ordinary perception gave way to collective wonder. The human mind, in moments like this, tends to reach for explanation. Witnesses tried to reconcile what they saw with familiar frames of reference: aircraft, flares, balloons. Yet none fit. Flares, while bright, would drift erratically and fade quickly. Jets or helicopters could not maintain such formation silently over such distances. Attempts to identify the phenomenon using available knowledge only reinforced the mystery. It was precisely the inability to categorize the lights that made them remarkable. Observers experienced the rare convergence of certainty and doubt. They knew what they saw, yet could not explain it. This duality, the tension between perception and understanding, is central to the lingering power of the Phoenix Lights. It transforms the event from a mere visual occurrence into an experience that resonates on psychological, cultural, and even philosophical levels. In the calm of the desert night, communities across Arizona became witnesses simultaneously. The lights were seen not in isolation, but as a shared event, knitting together observers separated by miles, but united by a single visual narrative. Parents pointed them out to children. Neighbors emerged from houses to see the same phenomenon, and strangers exchanged brief, astonished glances across quiet streets. The collective observation created a rare communal consciousness. Hundreds of people independently aware, perceiving the same inexplicable event. Psychologists studying mass sightings note that such events are extraordinary precisely because they combine scale with consistency. The Phoenix Lights demonstrated that the human mind, when calm and attentive, can be a reliable recorder of phenomena that transcend conventional understanding, especially when the observation is unhurried and unpressured. The responses of individuals varied, yet shared underlying emotions. Many reported feelings of awe and reverence, a sense that the lights were not threatening but profoundly significant. Some spoke of a deep calm, a meditative state that accompanied the observation, as if the universe had paused to make itself known. Others were curious, their minds turning over possibilities, considering explanations that ranged from the conventional to the extraordinary. This mixture of wonder, reflection, and questioning creates a narrative that is simultaneously personal and universal, inviting each witness, and now each listener, to inhabit a space between knowledge and mystery. It is in this space that the Phoenix Lights continue to captivate, not merely as an event, but as an experience. Culturally, the lights have left an indelible mark. Arizona communities continue to celebrate the night with commemorations, gatherings, and skywatch events. The event has inspired documentaries, books, and creative works that explore the intersection of observation, mystery, and imagination. Across the United States, the Phoenix Lights are cited as a landmark case in ufology and mass sightings, remarkable for the combination of scale, credibility, and multi-location consistency. But beyond the academic or folkloric significance lies a subtler impact. The event reminds us of the vastness of our environment, the quiet power of shared observation, and the ways in which ordinary nights can hold extraordinary possibilities. It is a reminder that mystery does not require immediate explanation to be meaningful. Sometimes, wonder alone suffices. Modern investigations continue to revisit the event with new tools, radar analyses, atmospheric modeling, and even comparisons with other global sightings. While these studies provide insight into potential explanations, they have not diminished the sense of awe surrounding the original event. Instead, they reinforce the significance of the eyewitness accounts, demonstrating that careful observation, even decades later, remains a key element in understanding complex phenomena. Researchers approach the Phoenix Lights not only as a puzzle to be solved, but as a case study in human perception, memory, and the limits of conventional understanding. The mystery persists, inviting both reflection and inquiry, while maintaining the serenity and calm that made the original night so distinctive. As we reflect on the Phoenix Lights, it becomes clear that their enduring power lies not only in what was seen, but in the experience of seeing itself. The event exemplifies the quiet majesty of the night sky, the depth of human perception, and the beauty of moments when ordinary life intersects with the extraordinary. It reminds us that the universe is not always bound by human expectation, that silence and scale can produce profound experiences, and that wonder is a fundamental part of observation. Those who witness the lights describe a mixture of clarity and mystery, a feeling that the night itself was alive with something larger than themselves. For listeners imagining that night, feeling the warmth of the desert air, the stillness around them, the soft glimmer of lights across the vast sky, offers not just a story, but a gentle meditation, an invitation to rest, reflect, and let curiosity drift quietly alongside calm. The Phoenix Lights, in this sense, are more than an unexplained aerial event. They are a shared experience, a cultural touchstone, and a meditation on the unknown. They demonstrate the intersection of observation, memory, and mystery, and the ways in which human beings respond to phenomena that challenge understanding. The event leaves us with questions that may never be fully answered, yet provides a framework for reflection, imagination, and quiet wonder. As night settles once again over Arizona, as the desert air cools and stars slowly appear in the endless sky, the Phoenix Lights remain suspended in memory, a gentle, enduring bridge between the known and the unknown, inviting all who consider them to look upward, to pause, and to allow the mystery of the universe to unfold in calm, contemplative observation. In this space between knowledge and wonder, one can rest, drift, and experience the profound quiet of a night touched by something larger than ourselves. It is in that quiet, in the pause between stars and desert, between expectation and astonishment, that the Phoenix Lights linger, not as a problem to solve, but as a gentle companion to the imagination, an enduring whisper of mystery against the soft rhythm of the night.